Let's start with a reality check. When you hear the word negotiation, your brain probably jumps straight to, high-stakes corporate boardrooms, tense hostage situations, or lawyers hammering out multi-million-dollar settlements. But the truth? It's way closer to home. As the legendary negotiation experts Roger Fisher and William Ury put it, like it or not, you are a negotiator. Negotiation is a fact of life.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to completely reframe how you look at your daily conversations. Our goal here is to empower you in your everyday interactions. We're breaking down the mechanics of resource allocation, team dynamics, and interpersonal persuasion. By the end of this, you're going to step into literally any discussion with absolute confidence.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today. 1. Negotiation is everywhere. 2. The negotiation process. 3. Discover your negotiation style. And 4. Planning your BATNA.
Let's dive right in. Section 1. Negotiation is everywhere.
Whether you're a senior director, an admin, or a brand new intern, you negotiate continuously. It's the invisible current flowing through every single workplace. But to really master this, we kind of need to clear up what negotiation actually is. Listen, it isn't just about conflict. You can totally have a disagreement without it being a full-blown conflict. Fundamentally, it's a process that develops when you and someone else have a mix of common and divergent interests, but you both share a real desire to reach a mutual agreement. If your interests perfectly aligned, well, you wouldn't negotiate. You just make a decision. The magic happens when we navigate the differences.
In the workplace, this usually falls into one of 3 broad categories. First, we have day-to-day negotiations. This is your internal workflow, figuring out workload distribution, employee input, or who's managing what project. Second, commercial negotiations. This is dealing with external parties, hammering out contracts, or securing an agreement based on financial gains. And third, legal negotiations, which are formal, binding, and usually involve disputes over precedent. Now, most of us live in that first category, the day-to-day, often without even realizing we're sitting at a negotiating table.
It's fascinating when you map this out on 2 distinct axes. Picture a horizontal axis. You can approach a tense situation either as a clash or as a joint problem-solving exercise. Then, on the vertical axis, how do you organize the interaction? Do you engage in direct debate, throwing arguments back and forth, or do you rely on a third party, like a manager or a set of rules, to just decide for you? The absolute sweet spot of true negotiation often floats right there in the middle, balancing debate with problem-solving.
Moving right along, Section 2, the negotiation process. Let's transition from the abstract idea to the actual physical mechanics of a deal. How do we get from 2 differing opinions to a signed, sealed, and delivered agreement? Well, there's a brilliant way to visualize this complex flow, often called the N-shaped process, because, you guessed it, it literally traces the shape of an N. You start at the bottom left with people holding divergent interests but a common will to negotiate. Then you move up as you analyze those interests, diagonally down as proposals are exchanged and agreements are formed, and finally back up to the top right to actually implement the agreement.
That N shape breaks down into 4 really concrete steps. 1. Analyze the situation and find the overlapping interests. 2. Propose exchanges. This is the classic, I'll give up this if you give me that phase. 3. Proposals take form and you reach an agreement. And 4, and this is absolutely crucial, you implement it. An agreement on paper means absolutely nothing if you haven't negotiated the reality of how it actually gets done.
But keep in mind, this whole process is incredibly fragile. It's not just some straightforward mathematical formula. Actually, scratch that. It's way more like a delicate human balancing act. To succeed, we can't just fixate on the prize. We have to manage a very specific triangle of factors.
You literally have to manage all 3 corners of this triangle to keep things from collapsing. You have the issues, those are the actual objectives you're trying to reach. You have the process, the formal or informal rules you both agree to follow. And you have the relationship, which is this messy blend of rational thinking and raw emotion between the people involved. A rupture in any of these can break down the whole thing. If you win the issue, but completely destroy the relationship early on, you're going to find that you're entirely unable to implement the agreement later. It's a total package deal.
All right, on to Section 3. Discover your negotiation style.
Now that we understand the game and the board we're playing on, let's shift the focus inward. We really need to look in the mirror and understand exactly who you are when the pressure is on. The Thomas Kilmann indicator is a real game changer here. It measures your personal negotiation style based on 2 simple things: assertiveness, so how strongly you push for your own needs, and cooperativeness, how much you try to satisfy the other person's needs.
Based on those 2 factors, we basically fall into 5 distinct styles. Competing is high assertiveness, low cooperation. You just want to win.
Accommodating is the exact opposite, you yield to the other party. Avoiding is low on both, you just dodge the conflict entirely. Collaborating is high on both, you're working together to expand the pie for everyone. And compromising sits right smack in the middle. Now here's the big warning. The more tense the situation gets, the more we default to our natural preference. Under stress, a competitor will just try to win at all costs, completely forgetting what their actual interests were in the first place. If you know your default, you can consciously adjust it before your emotions take the wheel.
Let's do a quick, fun mental exercise to lock this in. Think of your favorite fictional leader. Let's go with Captain Picard from Star Trek. How would you describe his negotiation style on that matrix we just talked about? Is he collaborating? Competing? What kind of tactics does he use when he's facing a hostile alien threat versus, say, a disagreement among his own crew? Actively thinking about these styles and characters really helps you spot them in real time when you're staring across the table at a stubborn coworker.
And finally, Section 4, Planning Your BATNA.
Let's look outward again and arm you with some concrete empowerment tools for your arsenal. Before you ever start a negotiation, you need to quantify your tangibles. Imagine your manager has 6 high-profile project files. Let's call them A through F, and you need to split them with a colleague. You need to know your opening offer. Maybe you ask for files A, B, C, and D just to set an anchor. Then you need your target, which is what you'd actually be happy with. Say just A and B. Then you have your reservation point, which is the absolute bare minimum you'll take. And finally, your BATNA. We'll define that in just a second.
I really want to emphasize the vital difference between aiming high for your target and knowing your absolute bottom line. Your target is what keeps you ambitious, right? If you want files A and B because they have the most visibility, aim for them. But your reservation point, that's your internal alarm bell. If your colleague tries to leave you with only file C and your reservation point was file A, you know you are in the danger zone. It's your predetermined walkaway point.
But what happens if you actually do have to walk away? Well, that's exactly where your BATNA comes in. Coined by Fisher and Urey, BATNA stands for the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. It is the absolute best outcome you can achieve if the other person flat out refuses to budge. It's not what you want to happen, it is your reality check backup plan.
Having a strong BATNA drastically, almost unfairly, increases your negotiating power because it totally removes desperation from the equation. The math is brilliantly simple. If their proposal is better than your BATNA, you should probably accept it. But if their proposal is worse than your BATNA, you reopen negotiations or you simply walk away. You literally never have to accept an agreement that leaves you worse off than your alternative. It's the ultimate safety net.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a challenge. Think about the very next difficult workplace conversation you have lined up. Maybe it's about your workload, resources, or a tight project timeline. Before you even step into that room, what's your opening offer? What's your walkaway point? And most importantly, what is your BATNA? Because once you know your alternatives, you're not just participating in a conversation anymore. You are actively designing your success. Thanks so much for joining me, and happy negotiating.